Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Call of Duty Ghosts Extinction Mode. This was the mode that many people were looking a little bit sideways at. You can imagine it. They kind of tilt their head quizzically in one direction, like some sort of curious squirrel, and they say, "Why is there the aliens in my Call of Duties? With the guns and the men shoot, and the shooting of the men with the guns, and now there's some kind of bug thing that I have to shoot. You mean I don't get to shoot other men with the guns?" Well, it's an optional co-op 4-player mode that has been added into Call of Duty Ghosts, and a lot of you will be saying, is it like zombies? I'm gonna be honest, I couldn't really tell you, because I didn't play much of zombies, not that much at all. What little I did play of it, I did notice some similarities between Extinction and zombies. So, we'll get into it, and I'll show you what's going on. I'm going to apologize for my gameplay in advance. As I mentioned in the previous video, TotalBiscuit capture, which is my standard method of capture, which I've used for hundreds of games over the last couple of years, does not work with Call of Duty. In fact, it crashes the game if you even try. I have no idea why that is. That means I'm using fraps, which means that's going to affect my frame rate significantly, probably knock it down to 30, which means I aim like crap. Sorry, that's just how it goes. So, in this mode, you will get to choose between one of 4 different classes. And these classes will give you a bonus that can be leveled up as a single sort of line in the skill tree, as it were. So, Weapon Specialist, more damage, and those are the perks that you get eventually as you upgrade them. Tank, same kind of thing. Engineer, and then you've also got your Medic, which I haven't unlocked yet, because for some reason you need to be rank 10 for that. Don't really know why. Then you can pick from one of 4 different pistols. I'm going to take the Magnum, because it's pretty powerful. And you've got a bunch of other options that you've got here as well. So you can take a box of some kind of ammo, either regular ammo or, say, stun ammo or something like that. So I'm going to take stun ammo. Team support, explosives, feral instincts, and armor. I think I'm going to grab some armor there. You can then pick a strike package, which is one of 5 different weapons. These guys just kind of do what they do on their own. And then you got the Equalizer, which is something that you personally have to use, which is a selection of different super weapons like the grenade turret, which all of these can be upgraded throughout the game. And the whole point of it is to reach the end of the level having destroyed as many hives as possible, and hopefully not being eaten by deadly alien creatures. So, let's get into it and show you how that works. We're going to go into a public match on the first map, which is Point of Contact. Most people haven't really got past this yet, from what I can tell, because it can be a little tricky. It's not an easy game, but it does take a little while to actually ramp all the way up to being super difficult. Are we about ready to go? Just need these 2 guys to ready up, and then we can rock and roll. Yep. Those are the bugs you're going to be facing. I know, some of you are saying, did Call of Duty jump the shark? Well, last I checked, you had Nazi zombies in, what, at least 3 COD games? So, no, I think if it was going to jump the shark, it jumped them quite some time ago. And honestly, it's a little bit pleasant to see something different, because we never had anything like that. It was always zombies, 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 and hey, it's 2013, the year of the zombie has passed. Zombie games are extremely passé, and now we get aliens. Which is okay, because the last Aliens game we got, in fact, was terrible. Aliens Colonial Marines. Ugh. To be fair, the last Alien games that we got over the past 10 years haven't been that good either, but yeah. Alright, so you dropped in and you have to get past these hives. They block the way. And since Call of Duty soldiers, as you're well aware, are utterly incapable of climbing anything higher than a chest-high wall, you have to use a drill to break your way through this hive. When you do so, this kind of pisses the aliens off and they come and try and murder you. You're then issued a challenge, which we're about to instantly fail. Why? Because whoever designed these is a goddamn idiot. So, each time you take down one of these hives, you're given a challenge. It's the same every time, by the way. So the first hive is always the melee challenge, always. And it's team-wide, meaning that it is entirely possible to fail the challenge in an instant because some arsehole didn't bother to read it. Now, these challenges reward you with extra skill points, which make a fairly significant difference. If you actually nail every challenge, you get double the skill points you regularly would, which is a big deal. Very big deal. These are the skills you can spend. So I'm going to go straight into Engineer, because I want to get level 2 pretty quickly, because I want to start using some traps around the place. And you level those up with skill points, and as you get higher up, it'll cost a few more skill points here and there. So it makes a really big difference, as I think you've probably managed to figure out at this stage. Alright. toss these over there. Very cool. Alright, so we're gonna now drill the second hive, and this is gonna go on and on. The hives always spawn in the same location. It's always pretty much the same waves of enemies that are going to come at you. You've got to protect the drill and make sure it doesn't get destroyed. It's pretty difficult to actually have it completely destroyed, I've got to say. Most of the time, it's just a case of saying, oh, right, well, it's taken some damage. You lose a little bit of score if you don't manage to fully protect it, but for the most part, it's fine. And you will be attacked by these little aliens, and then a few down the line, we will actually see some scarier aliens in the form of scorpions, and then eventually things like tanks on wave 8 or 9 or so as you progress through the level. Now, it's for the most part a fairly basic horde mode, but it does have some of those zombie elements in it. You probably noticed a gun lying by the side of the road earlier. In fact, I think we're going to go buy it, simply because we can. Let's try and deal with these guys first. There we go. So you can pick up a gun, and it will cost you money to do so, and then you can just rock and roll with it, which is pretty good considering you start with a pistol only. My god, I really cannot aim at 30 FPS. I don't know how you consoles guys do it. I really don't. It's insane. I guess when you get used to it, but, man. I tell you. You never come back. That's the dark side. There we go. I'll take them out with a little bit of Semtex. So you can keep buying those, and you can also spend them on the upgrades, which I showed you earlier. Things like a box of ammunition, things like the IMD, or whatever the hell it's called. That kind of stuff. Makes perfect sense. It's a nice and easy system, and they're mostly controlled by hotkeys. On the controller, I imagine you'd have to use the D-pad, but you can use hotkeys in the PC mode, which is nice. You also have access to things like traps, which can be set, and they cost money to set up. So, if you're wanting to set up an electric fence, you will have to pay money to do that. I'm not entirely sure who you pay it to. It is a little weird. It feels like you're in some kind of alien-related snuff film, but hey, there you go. And aside from that, if you go down, you need to be revived by somebody, and that's pretty much it. That's how it works. Nothing too complicated. Is it any good? Well, I think the aliens are a little more interesting than the zombies, I'll put it that way. Mostly because they can climb along walls, and they move in a fairly unnatural fashion. They certainly do not move slowly. And shooting things in midair is a little bit challenging, I've got to say. And it is nice, come on guys, let's be honest, it's nice to get away from the idea of killing zombies. We have done so much of that lately. We should be a damn expert at it at this stage. There we go. Cool, that should give me cheaper traps, and that's good considering we're going to have to use them here. Oh, maybe it didn't give me cheaper traps. Maybe I need to go a higher level than that, because these always cost 500, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Huh. Strange, very strange. Oh, I can't put rapid fire on my Magnum. How disappointing. Alright, I think I'm going to have to buy some ammo for the team, actually. So, I'm going to do that. There we go. That's some stun ammo. And I can reload off that as well. And then we'll defend the next drill. Yeah, I think you're seeing how this goes, aren't you? It's a relatively simple to understand kind of horde mode. There are some differentiations from time to time. You do end up getting into a situation where you can't actually blow up one of the hives with a drill. You've got to defend a helicopter from scorpion fire as it gradually, very, very slowly, with the least powerful weapons on the planet, makes its way through the barrier hive so you can actually advance. Because, again, climbing over things not an option for Call of Duty soldiers. You know, if it wasn't Infinity Ward, I'd almost think that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they've even managed to do super serious on this, which is a little daft, to say the least. The co-op elements are basic, I would say. You can cooperate to summon a helicopter, which costs you about $6,000, which is quite nice. And of course, there's the revival elements to it, but the classes don't really synergize all that well, and it really seems to just be a case of take the stuff that the other guy isn't taking. And that's assuming the guy's high enough rank to even take it. So if someone has a normal ammo box, maybe you want another guy to take a special ammo box, and things like that. But that's assuming that they're high enough rank to do it in the first place. Killing the aliens is relatively fun, but as I said before, the progression is very slow, so you fight the same aliens for like 3 or 4 waves, just in increasing numbers. Then they add a new alien type in, you fight them for another 3 waves, then a new one, and so on and so forth. They don't really seem to escalate all that quickly, at least not on this map. Maybe once you get to the more complicated maps, assuming you've got the tolerance for that, then it will get to that point. But it takes so long to get through these maps that maybe you won't end up doing that, and you will just get just a tad bored by the end of it, because it is the same thing over and over again. But even after saying all that, it's probably one of the most interesting things that Call of Duty Ghosts is currently doing, because at least they have tried to differentiate somewhat from the previous COD titles, even if it is a little bit like zombies. In fact, it's probably a lot like zombies. It's not bad. It's probably the most fun that the game currently has to offer right now. I definitely don't hate it. I think it's got its moments, but I'm also not overly enamored by these co-op-focused horde games that seem to have popped up in a big way over the last, well, 2 years, I would say. I got a lot of flack a while ago for basically taking a gigantic dump all over Sniper Elite's Nazi Zombie Army, and I would no doubt do the same thing on Nazi Zombie Army 2 if I could even be asked to play it, because I said, look, you know, this co-op focus is not an excuse for actually having a good game. I also said a similar thing with God Mode, but what I will say is that, unlike God Mode, the mechanics of this game are solid because, hey, it's Call of Duty gunplay, so either you're going to like the Call of Duty gunplay or you're going to hate it. But one way or the other, the gunplay is not noticeably worse than Call of Duty, which is good. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a very positive thing indeed. However, whoever designed the challenge system is a damn idiot. It's mostly because if you're playing in a pub, you are relying on the pubbies not to do dumb stuff. And they will. They absolutely will. It's actually at that point that I'm a little bit glad they didn't put too much co-op focus in the game at all, because in games like that, you tend to get horribly frustrated. It's the same reason why you get that frustration in pub queues for something like, say, Dota or League of Legends. Very similar idea behind that. People get frustrated because the team doesn't play as a team, and then everything falls to pieces, and you don't really have any control over that. Even though there's barely any co-op focus in the Horde mode at all, aside from just needing extra bodies to shoot stuff, they still manage to screw things up with the challenges because they are, for some reason, team-dependent. Now, if that had any sense, what they'd do is, if there was any challenge with an instant failure state, i.e. don't do this, they would make that an individual challenge. So, only melee, or don't use an ability for 90 seconds. They make that an individual challenge. So if someone else screwed it up and just didn't bother to read it, then at least you wouldn't suffer. But as it stands, you do suffer. You suffer the idiocy of others, which in Call of Duty is abundant, I have to say. And let's be honest, nobody plays Call of Duty to have to read. So I guess they just ignore what comes up in the Southwest. The aliens aesthetic is quite nice. I don't think there's anything particularly original about them, honestly. They look alien-like. You know, they leap around. I mean, it's the kind of thing you would expect. They look actually a little bit like the stuff from Natural Selection, but I'm not going to say there's a blatant rip-off anywhere. It's just, it's inspired from various different sources. Things are derivative, folks. That's just the way of it. We live in a derivative world. It's to be expected, I have to say. But unfortunately, as far as I am concerned, I don't think this is enough of a selling point to kind of get over the fact that this game has an awful lot of problems. It's fun, for the most part, but it does get highly repetitive. I think you've got to play it with friends, and I think if you do, and I think if you've got complementary loadouts, yeah, you'll probably have a decent amount of time. You communicate with your friends, say, right, set off the fire trap right now, blah, 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 blah. That could be good. I could definitely see that happening. I could have some fun with that. But, you know, with random guys from the internet, maybe not so much. Game also, as you can clearly see, does still suffer from some lag problems. It doesn't seem to affect the aliens. I assume that's all done client side. If the aliens were warping around, then that would be a real problem. But they're not, so that's fine. As you can see, the chopper's now coming in. It's around here somewhere. There it is. And now they're going to spawn a new enemy type called the Scorpion, which can launch acid at people. And then, of course, you just have to gun that down and continue to push your way forward. And that's what it is. It doesn't really have any of the sense of humor that seems to be present in the previous Zombies games, which is very unfortunate. I wish that there was. I think that you're going to do aliens, you've got to do it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and I don't think that Infinity Ward knows what that means. So that's a little bit problematic. But it's a decent good time. Not good enough to justify the price tag, though. Not at all. It's a game mode that I think a lot of people will end up playing until some stuff with the Call of Duty multiplayer ends up getting fixed, because it is pretty solid. Frame rate wise, just to talk about performance, on some of these levels there are a lot of particle effects and things like that. Definitely not enough to justify the drops, but I have had drops down to 40, I've had drops down a little bit lower than that, and that's when not capturing, I should stress that. So, performance is still a problem in this mode, and arguably even worse, because there's a lot of stuff on the screen at any given time. So, a little bit unacceptable. I do like the way the aliens act, though. You know, they're generally not that dumb. Every now and again, they do pretty stupid things, and the fact that they get killed by knives is quite frankly embarrassing for their race, but regardless, they act in an alien way. And it's not like a bunch of humans or a bunch of zombies just running at you. It's got its own kind of unique flavor there. But it ain't enough to carry it. Not at all. No, no, no. Sorry. You're gonna need to do a little bit more than that if you want to impress me. These kind of games are a little bit passé right now. A lot of games have modes that do this, and there are a lot of games that do it on their own. And some of them do it a lot better than this, like, say, Killing Floor, which I will recommend to my grave as being a phenomenal example of the co-op shoot hordes of mutants genre. My name's been TotalBiscuit, taking a look at the so-called Extinction Mode for Call of Duty Ghosts. It's alright. It's okay. It's not bad. But it doesn't carry the game, I'm afraid. No, no, no. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I'll see you next time.